I don't know what to call it. It's a claimed death. Has held up those ceasefire talks. The motivations for both sides to have a ceasefire, Hamas to get respite from the Israeli bombardment, and Israel to get more of its hostages out. Those motivations are still there.
Now let's go back and look further at the Gaza story. I'm joined on the line by the Times correspondent in Tel Aviv, Richard Spencer. Welcome back to the programme, Richard. What are we hearing, if I can ask you this first, what are we hearing from both sides about the sad death of this infant?
This extraordinary story, extraordinary developments all day in this terrible case of the youngest hostage that Hamas took on October the 7th. If you remember, yesterday we spoke to the family who were begging really to know why this baby and his 4-year-old brother and their mother had not been on any of the lists for release so far. I mean, it seemed an obvious place to start with the youngest child held. All sorts of stories about them being handed over to another group, the PFLP, handed over to their custody, rumours that they were being subject to separate negotiations with that group. And then suddenly, halfway through this afternoon, Hamas released this extraordinary one-line statement just saying they're dead. They were killed by an Israeli airstrike. No date given. No explanation of why. No statement was given before. No one was informed. No confirmation. No way of verifying this statement. It caught everybody up by surprise, as far as we're aware. No indication that the Israeli side had any inkling of this. The IDF put out a very prompt statement saying it would look into it, obviously, and try and verify it. They've obviously also been in contact with the family. I mean, I think even with the IDF's intelligence abilities, that's going to be a quite hard case to verify and bring the full facts to light.
Okay, and Richard, what about the ceasefire? What is the latest on the prospects for a ceasefire being extended?
Well, the news from the ceasefire talks front, which, as you know, are going on in Qatar, that's gone pretty quiet since this announcement. There's no indication that this announcement of this death, or I don't know what to call it. It's a claimed death. Has held up those ceasefire talks. The motivations for both sides to have a ceasefire, Hamas to get respite from the Israeli bombardment, and Israel to get more of its hostages out. Those motivations are still there. So we are led to believe that they're continuing, but we haven't had any of the sort of news that we've had in the past about an imminent announcement. But just to remember, that has to come tonight. The ceasefire is due to expire after the release of 10 more hostages, which we're expecting any time now. There's not much time to play with.
And meanwhile, Richard, reports of a raid on a refugee camp in the West Bank.
Yeah, I mean, another gruesome and horrific tale. I mean, the outline is not that unusual. Israel was raiding the refugee camp in Jenin, a town in the West Bank that has seen a lot of trouble, a lot of clashes between militants based there and the Israeli security forces, not just during the current conflict, but for the last year or so. In this case, they claim to have killed the commander of the militants in that camp. But in doing so, they also shot a couple of children, including an 8-year-old child. There's a very distressing video of this child running across the street. The child may have been throwing a stone or something. We don't know what. But as yet, we are also investigating. But the child's connection to the events is not clear, put it that way. But he does seem to have been hit in the back as he was running down the street, and seems to have been killed instantly. A child with him is seen dragging his body across the road to shelter behind a car. It's again incredibly distressing episode.
More awful news. Richard Spencer, thank you for that. Richard Spencer reporting there live from Tel Aviv.